Okay, so this is the first episode of PuckPod by BDsports. I'm Brian, the founder and co-owner of BDsports, and this is our premier weekly fan-based podcast that will be streamed live to YouTube. Obviously, this is the first episode, pilot episode. It's not being streamed, but yeah, here's the video, here's the VOD, and I have two of some of my closest friends. I have David Leo here, and I have Cristian Ceniti. David Leo, co-owner of BD Sports. Cristian Ceniti, the contributor for hockey articles at BD Sports. Please introduce yourself, David.
Hey, I'm Dave. So I'm a big Leaf fan, so that's why we started up this podcast. As you'll find out, so is my co-host as well. We're always like talking about hockey, and that's kind of like the main idea for this pod. And if you decide to give it a listen, let us know. Like if you enjoy our topics and stuff. So like I'm trying to get into sports journalism in the future, and I hope that this pod at some point, like it'll reach enough people to help me out and help everybody else out in this call. And maybe if anybody is going to listen to this or in the future is going to listen to it, I implore you to message us if you want to come on board. We're always looking for like new ideas, fresh content and stuff. So yeah. Cristian, how about you, man?
Well, yeah, I'm Cristian, and just echoing a lot of the things Dave said. Big Leaf fan, but more than just Leafs, I love hockey. You could throw on the Coyotes at the San Jose Sharks. I'm probably watching. Let's talk about Travis Boyd, first line center all day. That's all good with me. And as Brian said, yeah, I'm writing a couple articles on BD Sports. Going to be writing more throughout the year. And I'm just a big hockey nerd. That's about as far as it goes. And like Dave said about sports media, if this podcast can get us anywhere, I'll take it. And other than that, yeah, that's me.
All right, so if you guys find this pod because you guys are a fan of our website, our articles, thank you guys again for supporting us. I guess this is the next step for us, as a media company, as a business, but hopefully things go well and we see where it goes from there. Dave, how was your day today?
That was great. I just came home from the Jays game. They had a 1:30 start, swept the Red Sox, and it seems like now this is I don't know if they swept them the last time that they played the Sox, but like I just saw a stat that they matched they set the record for the most times that they beat an opponent in a single season with 18. So they beat the Sox 18 times this year which is a fantastic stat because F the Sox and also F the Yankees and also F the Orioles and also F the Rays. F the AL East except for the Jays. But it was a good game today. I enjoyed it. Great time.
And that's why he didn't come prepared with any notes, guys, because he decided to go to the Jays game. Anyway, Cristian, how was your day?
I didn't watch the full Jays game like Dave got to, but started the off watching some F1. It was a little bit boring. Slept in, but luckily the race was delayed, so I basically didn't miss anything. Woke up to Perez in first, Leclerc in second, and it basically just stayed like that the whole. But you can't go wrong with F1 in the morning. Check a little bit of sports throughout the day, and now we're here.
Okay, well, I did watch that race as well, and unfortunately, my driver will not be winning the World Driving Championship in Singapore, but Japan is a nicer place to win anyway, and hope that doesn't get me canceled. All right, guys, so enough about our random talk. Let's go in with the first topic I have. So we did come up with notes, but for this specific topic, I didn't warn these two about this topic, and just because we get a more natural opinion about it. So the topic is, how do you guys feel about ads on jerseys? Cristian, you go first.
Well, you know what? You didn't tell us about this, but I already had it in my notes, so I'm a step ahead here. So starting with the Leafs, because like we said, me and Dave, Leaf fans, we know that Brian, your allegiance is elsewhere. You can tell that yourself. But milk on the Leafs jersey is fine with me. I already drink a crap ton of milk every day. So I'm a supporter of that. In terms of the look of it, honestly, from watching a couple preseason games, it's not that intrusive to me. I'm sure other people have different opinions. And I know for some teams, they're selling them on the jerseys that you can buy at their stores. So that would definitely be a no-go for me. I'm not trying to buy a jersey with milk on it. But Leaf-wise, it's fine. And like I said, the other teams, I know Montreal's with RBC. And the logo is a little large. The blue is maybe not Montreal blue. It does stand out a bit more. But honestly, it's going to be a reality across North American sports. MLB, I believe they're doing it next year too. So it's a necessary evil, and if that's how we get the salary cap up in a couple years, then we'll probably honestly be fine with it. But first year, sure, there'll be a little bit of bumps and bruises.
Dave, what's your take?
Yeah, so no, listen, I'm in the same opinion here as Christian. Like, at the end of the day, it is a necessary evil, like you said, Christian. Now, do I want to see the logos take like center stage, kind of like how they do overseas? Definitely not. But a shoulder, like a chest patch, maybe a shoulder patch, that is completely fine with me. I actually really like the look of the milk. Like, it goes really nice with the Leafs logo. Like you said, like, there's some logos that might not fit that well with some of the teams, but with the Leafs, like, they did it off really well. Shout out the dairy farmers of Ontario. Got to pay them huge respects. But like, if you look across the seas, and even to the MLS as well. If you look across the seas to like European soccer, they have their logo as potentially the smallest part of their kits. Like, it pales in comparison to like the giant centerpiece that they have as their their advertising sponsorships, because that's where all the money is. Now, I want to see the NHL succeed, and the only way for the NHL to succeed is to get more money from their sponsorships, right? That's the only way that like that this salary cap's going to go up, guys. Like, if you're making a big deal over a 6-inch by 6-inch patch on a player's jersey, that, okay, granted, if you don't want to buy the jersey with the patch, I completely understand. But listen, if the players are wearing it, who cares?
So
No one cares.
So I have the same take as you guys. I think that it's good that players can get paid more. Salary cap goes up, which is always a good thing for teams that spend to the cap. But how do you guys feel about, like, you go into the NHL shop, you buy a nice shirt, and then there's like a Caesar Sportsbook logo or an RBC logo on it? Like, you guys okay with that, or do you guys rather have, if you're gonna sell the patch, it has to be discounted or something like that, along the lines of, you're just walking billboard, right? Want to chime in, Dave?
I'm
Well,
Go
Brian,
ahead.
like, we have a closet full of English, like, Premier League jerseys, from soccer teams around the world, from football teams around the world, and we're walking ads for Fly Emirates, for was it for a long time there, Yokohama Tires from Chelsea, Chevrolet from Man United. Like,
That's
we're
true.
already walking billboards, right? Like, for me, I can't sit here and say, oh no, I don't like it if you have to buy the jersey with the patch on it, because, like, how am I going to be hypocritical and say that and then also have like 5 soccer jerseys hanging in my closet? You know what I mean? So that's my
Christian?
opinion on that.
For me, it's a little different, but that honestly might be because I don't watch the same level of soccer as you guys. I'll catch some TFC here and there, but I'm definitely more on the bandwagon side than a diehard TFC guy. So I don't know. It does feel a little intrusive to me if I'm buying shirts from the official sites or the official stores, and we do have those sponsorships. But the counterpart is what you guys mentioned, and I mentioned Formula One earlier. You buy Formula One merch, it's the same thing. So honestly, from the business perspective, it makes nothing but sense for the NHL. The whole point is to try and push the boundaries for what us fans think is acceptable. We get that. And in all likelihood, I don't know if we have a big enough voice to make that much of a complaint for them to change their minds. I don't really think that's realistic. So my point of view is just, let's come to terms with it. If it does end up on merch, maybe I'm a little more selective, but it's not going to make me stop watching hockey.
See, for me, it's
Yeah.
like, I'm never gonna blame the players for having an opportunity to get paid more, in a sense. You also, like, clubs in soccer becomes football. They also become synonymous with their, like, shirt sponsor. For example, like Inter Milan, they have Pirelli on their shirts. AC Milan have
They
had
had
Fly Emirates for years, man. Like, and Samsung iconically have had been on Chelsea shirts when they've won their first Champions League, when they've had this success. So Like, when you look back, those shorts are gorgeous with even the Samsung logo on it. I mean, Christian, if the Leafs won the cup with milk on the shirt.
I'm in total support of milk, man. I'm telling you that doesn't bother me.
Good to know.
We have the best sponsor logo in the league, if you ask me. Other
Hey,
than
you
no
too.
logo, that would be best. But
Wait,
yeah.
what would have been the best?
Just no sponsor. Like
Oh,
I think Edmonton, as far as I know, they haven't announced anything yet. And there's a couple other teams. I know a lot of Pacific teams haven't. I don't think the Kings have. Maybe not the Sharks. I know Vegas does, but there's a couple Pacific teams that haven't done anything yet. So
well,
that would be ideal. But yeah,
for
I'm fine
Edmonton,
with it.
Edmonton, wouldn't you expect like Rogers or like some oil company like out west, like legitimately,
Well,
like
that's even what I
Enbridge or
expect.
something?
Leafs, yeah. Like the theory was that it was going to be Rogers because if you would check player profiles on NHL's website, they were already linking up the team jersey sponsors with players' profiles. So when you would look at Michael Bunting, it would show Rogers underneath. So before we had milk, a lot of people thought it was going to be Rogers, and I probably wouldn't have the same opinion I have now if it was Rogers, just because the colors clash. For me,
That's a no
it
go.
does bother me a bit more. I'm the type of guy where up until I think last year, might have been 2 years ago, the Leafs home jerseys, their helmets, they used to wear black chin straps. And that would bother me because I know in the past they used to wear white chin straps, like back in the Sundin era, and they made the change. So that shows you where my eyes are, but probably can't say the same for everyone. Yeah.
And Dave?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know.
No worries, bro. Anyway, if you guys are looking to get any NHL merch, we do have an affiliation link to NHL Shop with the US and Canada down, and the links will be in the description below. And moving on to our next topic, we are going to be doing 90, 50, 10 predictions. If you guys don't know, it's basically predictions that we make now at the start of the year before the season starts. And we'll look back and see how wrong we were. Basically, the 90 is a 90% chance of a prediction occurring. The 50 is obviously the 50% chance of something occurring or what we think might happen. And the 10 is a long shot, but what we feel possibly could happen. We'll go through everybody's 90s. We'll discuss it each round. And we'll go all the way down to the 10, and we'll see who has the worst take. And we'll look back at the end of the year, if this pod continues, obviously. And we'll see who was the most correct and who is the dumbest.
Please don't forget to add us after this to let us know who had the stupidest take. Don't forget to add us.
It's going to be Dave. I know his 10. Holy shit.
Definitely going to be me. Oh, it's definitely going to be me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start with the 90, then we'll go Christian and Dave. So, my 90 is that Ovechkin will score 35 goals or more this season. And I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. He's only failed to do so 4 times in his whole career. 2 times were because he had an underperforming year, even though he did have 30-plus goals those years. And the other year was because of the lockout half season, the 2013 season, I believe. And obviously the COVID year. I mean, nothing was complete that year. So besides that, the last time he actually did miss was the 16-17 year. So how do you guys feel about that? As in my 90.
I think you're probably pretty safe with that one.
That's the goal.
Talking about it kind of reminds me of the chase that Pujols has been on for 700. I think you're going to probably see a similar thing with Ovechkin. So if he's not missing games, which he hasn't up to this point, he's pretty sturdy guy.
Knock on
Hard
wood
to
right
knock.
now.
Yeah. So I think you're pretty safe with that one, Brian. I think you're good.
Dave?
Brian, I'll be honest with you. I think you're playing it a little bit too safe, man. I think he's due for another 40, at least 40. I think he played it safe at 35, which, like, listen, I respect you for, because it's a 90% pick there. But, you know, if you really want to go balls to the walls here, I think he's due for at least 40, maybe touching 45 again. I just think he's that lethal. Like, is there a better scorer in NHL history than him? I don't think so. Off the top of my head, probably not. I don't think anybody compares to him. Like, as much as you want to say, maybe now, like somebody like Matthews, back then somebody like, you know, like a Brett Hull had that shot. Gretzky has of course he's got the goal record, but was Gretzky as lethal as Alexander Ovechkin was? I don't think so. I'll be honest with you, but you know, I think Brian, like I know you're a Caps fan, but I think even you're selling him short again, maybe a little bit. Like I can
Bro, it's a 90%
see him.
prediction. Just let me off the lead
Yeah,
for
I
this one,
mean,
man.
I think that's probably 100% prediction. Honestly, I think a 90% prediction for this would have been 40 or 45.
You know what? I'll take it.
Honestly,
It looks like I'm gonna go 1 for 3 this year at least. Dave, what's your 90?
all right. So my 90 prediction might seem a little bit foolish to some people, but hear me out. Matthews is going to hit 60 goals again. Now, I do have this. I do have the stats to back this up, actually. So this year he was on pace for 67 goals. He hit a .82 mark, which like is like statistically unheard of. Like nobody's hitting .82 in the modern era. Last year in a shortened season, he hit a .78 mark, which would have across 82 games would have hit him at 64. The year before that, so that would have been the COVID year. The COVID shortened year. He was on a .67 pace, which had him on 55 goal pace. Now, Matthews is the type of guy to, he is not streaky, but like he'll score in bunches. When he scores 2, 3. So that 55 mark, if he's at 55 across across 80 games, who's to say that he doesn't get, 3 in one and 2 in another? He could definitely hit something like that. And it's like the only thing I see ruining this pick is him missing games, which he did miss some games last year. He did miss 8 games last year. But the previous 2 seasons, he was available for every single game that was played. Like COVID shortened and a COVID like lockout season, he was available for every single game. So those were questions of his in the past. Like, was he able to stay healthy? He hasn't played a full 82 game season since his rookie year. So that is a big question. But if he's hitting 60 in only 73 games, I think if you tack on maybe another 3 to 4 games, I think he's a breeze for 60 again this year.
Cristian,
I don't know what you guys think
what's your
about that.
take on that?
Honestly, I
As a
think
90.
basically everything right there. So yeah, I'd say that's my only quibble is in reverse to what happened with Brian and Ovechkin there. I feel like 90% honestly might be a little high. And this is coming from a gigantic Leaf fan as well. Just because if I'm looking to set Matthews' risk of injury, we're basically saying that his risk of injury is 10%. And if it was me, I don't know. I'm thinking like more in the 20-25% range. Like we just said about how many games he hit per season there. Looking at his stat profile here, yeah, second year, 62 games, 68, 70 was the COVID shortened year. It seems like every other year, maybe 50% of his seasons, he's missing close to 10 games. So I don't have doubt in his scoring skill. And as they've mentioned, his only worry is health. And I agree on that part. Maybe I'd set that prediction at, maybe 75%. Like I said, 25% chance.
That's
No,
high,
70,
man.
75%.
60 goals
That's
is a lot. I don't think, who was the last guy to hit 60? Like Stamkos? Maybe
David
10 years ago?
Stamkos.
Stamkos and Ovechkin. I don't know if it was the same year that Ovechkin had 65. Maybe it was the year before.
I remember
But
Stamkos
I think
hitting it vividly.
the last official player was Stamkos. I think Ovi hit it the year before.
Guys, that's 10 years ago, let's say, right? 10 years ago, and we've seen 61s. I think that's like that's a 30% prediction. Because
Brian, scoring's going up across the board across the league, and save percentage is going down across the league, and it's been steadily dropping now for the past 5 years. I wouldn't put it past them to even suit up for 76 games and hit 60 goals again.
So I'm gonna put that around, like, for me, that's like a 30. Like, I know scoring is going up, but then you guys also gotta remember your division's like 5 times tougher. Like, I made that number up. 5 times not an equivalent number, but your division is a lot tougher. And like 60 is a lot, man. And if he gets hurt, I'm gonna knock on wood for you guys, don't worry. But let's say he gets hurt, misses half the season, prediction's out the window. And let's say he
All
gets
right.
cold, right? Like it's always a possibility of that. I mean, he's probably the best scorer in the league. I hate to admit it, but he probably is, and he's definitely a top 3, sometimes the best player in the league. I'll even give you that. That hurts me to say. I'm not gonna lie, but what I will say is that, dude, 60 goals is a lot.
I know you said that through gritted teeth, Brian. I'm not gonna lie.
I did, but you guys can't see my face because I don't have a webcam for my computer. But those words had troubles leaving my mouth, and now that's on video. Not looking too good. Anyway, Christian, what's your 90?
All right, my 90 is a little more team oriented. Basically, I'm going with 90% chance that the team that finishes last in the standings is from the Central Division. And if we got to highlight who those teams are, it's one of Arizona or Chicago. You tell me if I'm cheating a little bit, betting my chances here on one of 2 teams. I don't know, but just looking at those 2 rosters, I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, we legitimately, this is no hyperbole, Travis Boyd is playing on the first line of the Arizona Coyotes. So just that tells you what we're dealing with. Their goaltending, they've got, as I like to call them, the veggie milkman in net. And I don't even know who their backup is. I'd have to check, and I know
They don't have a backup.
Exactly, right? Like their defense isn't really anything to be too happy about if you're a Coyotes fan. Obviously, there's Chikrin, but we know he's on the trade block and he's also got health problems. Outside of that, you're looking at guys like Goss Despair. Dyson Mayo is on the first pair when I looked. So from the Arizona perspective, it's basically Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, and a bunch of guys. Chicago-wise, you got a little bit more natural talent. They picked up some mercenaries like Max Domi. They've got some younger guys. Lucas Reichel might make the team. And then obviously you have the star power in Patrick Kane. But this is a team that went to the Leafs for a starter and chose Peter Mrazek. Sounds like a good tank commander to me. So I'm betting my chances that there's 90% chance it's either the Coyotes or the Blackhawks that finish at the bottom of the standings this year.
I will agree with you on that one. I think that's a very good 90. A very good 90. You know, it's probably more of 100 than it is compared to my 90% pick. But no, those teams aren't doing too hot, and you know, you gotta feel for the Coyotes fans. They haven't been good for like ever. But Blackhawks fans, I have no sympathy for. Dave, what's your take?
You know what? I don't think you want my take right now because I do have a take for you guys after. I won't lie to you. So, you know what? I'll agree with your reasoning 100%. Like the reasoning is sound, but we'll talk about it after of what I think about the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah, you guys are in for a treat with that one. That's David's 10. I know what it is, and
I think I know
it's more
too.
like
Yeah.
a point one. I'll just leave it at that. All right. Going into the 50s, my 50% is that I think that the Bruins will miss the playoffs this season. The reason I say this is because the Atlantic slots are already filled up by Toronto and the Florida-based teams, Tampa and the Panthers. Ottawa and Detroit are obviously looking more competitive. Meanwhile, the Metro is stronger across the board, and those will likely be the teams in contention for the wildcard spot.
Listen, Brian, I don't disagree with you. I think that the Atlantic is too strong, especially for a team that's kind of like, I know it's kind of going to feel like, for lack of a better term, it's definitely been brought up before, but it's going to feel like the last dance for them, right? You know, Bergeron's coming back 1 year. Marchand's kind of got like, you know, a limited amount of time. Who knows where Pasternak's going to end up after this year, if he's going to stay. Because I believe he's UFA after this year, if I'm not mistaken. Have you guys like
Definitely. I'll give a check while you talk there. We'll see if
but yeah, like listen, they weren't strong enough last year. They didn't make any real needle pushing signings to get stronger, and the other teams in front of them have gotten as strong, like have stayed as strong as they were last year, and have also improved. And also the teams behind them have significantly improved. Like Ottawa, I think Montreal is going to be much better this year. Detroit's going to be much better this year, and Buffalo is going to be much better this year. It's going to be a dogfight for like the 4th spot, and I don't think that 4th spot in the Atlantic is even going to guarantee them a spot in the wild card. Like, I think the Metro might be stronger. Like the Metro, 4 to 8 is stronger than the Atlantic 4 to 8. If I'm being completely honest, like, it's not an easy ride in the East, and like if you don't have like the talent right now, like I don't know what you're doing. I think the Bruins are going to honestly be sellers at this deadline. I'll be completely honest. I think this might actually legitimately be the final year of their run. Like I get it, they want to run it back, but I just don't see where it's going to come from this year. I'll be honest with you guys.
Cristian, how good is my 50?
It's 10 out of 10, and I'll tell you why. It's my 50 as well. So it's a good thing you went to me last, because I do have the exact same 50 written down there. Bruins missed the playoffs. You guys hit a bunch of the points. If I had to highlight some teams that I think are going to put them in danger, it is Ottawa. It is Detroit. That Ottawa top six, I know it's been said a lot too, but like they honestly might be like one of the top 3 top sixes in the league. Batherson, Kachuk, Stützle, Giroux. Who else we got in there? Norris. That, like, those are incredible names to have in your top six. A bunch of I'm missing the Brinket, the guy who they acquired this season, right? So Ottawa definitely, I think, is going to give them a run for their money. Their defense is a little more questionable, but they do have Sanderson full time this year. We'll see how their goaltending holds up with Talbot as the new addition, but we've seen the goaltending hold up at times. And then on the Detroit front, you've got progression from Mo Seider and Lucas Raymonds, and those are obviously their cornerstones there. And then they've got 2 options in net. Other than Delkovich, they brought in Ville Husso. And I like how they're stacking up here. And honestly, I think their fresh young legs are going to give the Bruins a run for their money. As we mentioned, this is obviously a experienced team, the Bruins, but it's also an old team, and it's not a healthy team. You're starting the season with Marchand and McAvoy and Grzelcyk all on the IR to start the year. This is a team that has to push themselves to the limits early in the season in order to keep up with the younger teams. You're bringing back, we said Bergeron obviously is coming back for what feels like his last run on the 1-year deal. And same thing with Krejci. It's not a guarantee that he is the player he was when he left the NHL. I know he actually put up pretty good numbers in the Czech League. I think it was like basically point per game. So I wouldn't put it past them to put up 50 points this year, but I'm not sold on the Bruins' depth. Pavel Zacha's your first-line left wing, I think. I don't know how I feel about that. So honestly, I'm hoping as a Leafs fan, not trying to be too biased here, but I'm hoping as a Leafs fan they're sellers, because there's a guy on the Bruins that I wanted when he'd signed as a UFA. I was really clamoring for him, because this is just how I am. I like the depth guys. I really wanted Craig Smith, so fingers crossed Bruins are a seller. Maybe we had Craig Smith on our 3rd, 4th line as a Leafs fan.
So Cristian,
A yarn croak action with him, eh?
Right? That'd be a good little combo there.
Pretty nice little line right there. A pretty nasty line too.
Yeah.
So Cristian, how bad is it going to look when we replay this at the end of the season, when you guys win the division, Bruins get the last wildcard spot, and they take you out in 4?
Oh, hey, no, listen. The Bruins only take us out in 7.
That's true. All right, Dave, what's your 50? Hit us.
So I don't know how you guys are going to handle with this. I'm going to come in here with all these hot takes. I think the New York Islanders are going to be a wild card team this year. The New York Islanders had a extremely difficult start to last season. They played on the road for 27 games, I believe. Their first game was actually against the Leafs in mid-December. Their first home game, my mistake. Yeah. Listen, the New York Islanders were never really their strength was never scoring, which is what they really, really struggled with this year. And they didn't really add anybody to increase that scoring, but for what they have on the team right now, you've got Matt Barzal, who hasn't been a 20-goal scorer actually in 4 years. I just quickly went to go recheck his stats because that stood out to me.
Did you say 20?
But I think that was a 20-goal scorer. He hasn't touched years? 20 in 4 years. Yeah. He's been 18, 19, but listen, the New York Islanders, this iteration of them were never renowned as being a high-scoring team. They were a very defensively well-structured team under Barry Trotz. And now with the loss of Trotz, it's big. Like, that's not an understatement. And I guess we'll see how Lane Lambert comes in and does. Maybe he'll give the likes of Matt Barzal the freedom to roam a little bit more, to try to, get more open, like, not play as rigid as Barry Trotz did, which isn't to say that they're going to be free flowing. Like, they're not going to play a free flowing game as well, but they do actually have a pretty solid top six. Barzal, Lee, Nelson, Bailey, JG Pajot, Cal Palmieri have kind of lost steps. Beauvillier maybe is looking to come back with some vengeance. And then you got the sandpaper line: Casey Cizikas, Cal Clutterbuck, Matt Martin. Like, how can you go wrong? The whole line leads the leagues in penalty minutes. Like, come on, they'll punch your face in, and they'll chip up with a couple of goals here and there too. That's kind of what you want out of your depth guys, right? But their defense and their goaltending is where they really shine. Ryan Pulock on a very not team friendly, maybe not as team friendly as it could be, but a very fair deal at 6.1. Adam Pelech at 5.7 is an absolute steal. His agent should be shot out of a cannon, if I'm being honest, to only have him at 5.7. He could easily be at like almost $7 million. They have Noah Dobson, who's still coming up. They added Alexander Romanov. That's a very, very strong defense. And then you have a potential future Vezina winning goaltender in Ilya Sorokin, who's right now listed as a backup to Semyon Varlamov. Like, it's a very, very strong tandem. And I think this year, the mix of the sandpaper and maybe getting the chance to shine a little bit more offensively is going to just, kind of collide like everything. And the New York Islanders' mentality and their fan base are absolutely wild. Christian, you know this firsthand. Every time the Leafs go in there, it's like a madhouse. Whenever the Leafs roll into town, they're just crazy fans, and you gotta respect them for it.
That's a brutal take. These guys are the second worst team in the division, and they're. I'm sorry, and this might bite me in the back.
You just walk off the set, man.
I mean, listen, man, that's my opinion. That's how I see it.
But hear me out. This is your 50.
Yeah.
This is a 10, because the reason I say this is because look how stacked the division is from top to bottom. They're not even better than these guys aren't even better than Columbus. They're losing Barry Trotz, who's known for his system, and if they can't succeed with his system, with a almost no talent roster, guys, keep in mind their most talented player is Barzal, and like you said, he hasn't scored 20 goals in the past 4 seasons or whatever. How do you guys expect these guys to do anything with a brand new coach this season? I don't know. Like, off a miracle, maybe, but miracles don't happen 82 times in a year. They don't even happen, let's say, 50. So I disagree with you on this one. I mean, if you look back at the end of the year, I might look dumb. I might look really dumb, actually, but sorry, man.
So the one thing I'll say to that though, Brian, is the one con I was going to bring up though was the division, and that's why I didn't say, that's why I just said like a wild card spot, because I don't see them going higher into that top 3. It is going to be a strong division, but I also do think the Metro is going to take potentially both wild card spots. Like, I don't think a team like Boston, a team like Ottawa, I think that they'll end up like, and this is also a team that you have to remember that's only 2 years now removed from making it to a conference final, Brian. I wouldn't put that past them with relatively that entire team, except for like Sorokin, who was still in the minors at that point. Like, that entire team was roughly still around. Like, they're only 2 years removed from that. Like, and I think that's, pardon?
The goalie aspect might be the only thing keeping them in this. It's just like they literally lost the best coach in the league. Like, how do you improve from that? It just, I don't know. I don't see it happening, especially in the toughest division in the league. Yeah, you can beat Philly 5 times in our season, but can you beat Washington? Can you beat Pittsburgh? Can you beat the Rangers? Because I don't think they'll even take a game off Carolina.
I'll play a little bit of middleman here between you two. Let me give some counterpoints either way. Let's defend Dave first here.
Oh God.
Yeah, I'm gonna come to the rescue for Dave. I think he's right on the goaltending. I think he's right on the defense. Pollock, great guy. Dobson, up and comer, signed a new extension. He probably takes over Pollock as number 1D. They made the little cheeky trade there for Romanov, added him on the blue line. I'm a big fan of him. Pellick, we mentioned, advanced stats, darling, defensively pretty good. Low-key guys, Scott Mayfield. I like their blue line a lot. I like the goaltending a lot. I'm not a big fan of their offense or lack thereof. I don't really give too much slander to Barzal for not being a 20-goal scorer, just because it's not his game. And I don't really know who the playmaker would be that's feeding him for goals. He's more of a playmaker himself. So similar to Marner, that's not really his game. If he adds it to his game, that would be incredible. And you know what? Now that I mentioned it too, we've seen Marner add it to his game. We know what the potential is there. But I do kind of side with Brian saying that they're near the bottom in the division for me. I've been high on the Devils for like a couple of years now, so I don't know if that's saying anything good because they've not made the playoffs, I think, since that one-off in 2016-17 against the Devils in the first round. But I feel like this is the year for the Devils to make some noise. They've got some goalie depth there that they might give the Islanders a run for their money in the wild card. Outside of the Devils, honestly, the Blue Jackets, sure, they got Gaudreau, but I like a lot of their young guys too. Cole Sillinger, Kent Johnson, those are guys that Kent Johnson, I think, is playing first-line center. There's been a bunch of quotes about how he looks like the best defensive center for them in preseason. That's a defensively minded team. I know they're not on a Tortorella anymore, but they still that's been their bread and butter. So those two teams stand out to me in the Metro. I do think they're better than Philly. Honestly, Philly just seems like nuts to me. I don't know how the hell they're going to do anything. But Carolina, we basically grant them the division, I think. The Rangers are going to be there with them just because they've got a Vezina caliber goalie. And then you've got, obviously, the perennial contenders and the Penguins and Caps. One of them is going to grab those top 3 spots, and it's probably the other in one of the wildcard spots. And I'll take my chances with the Jackets or the Devils to snag that 5th wildcard spot if it comes down to it, that no Atlantic Division team is able to snag it.
At the end of the day, it comes down to the division. You have to play every team, I think, 5 times or around that amount.
It's usually 4, and they rotate it. Like, I know one of the storylines right now is that the Oilers are only playing the Flames 3 times this year, only getting 3 battles of Alberta. It's a little weird how the NHL does it, where they rotate it through the division, but still, they are the opponent you play the most is teams in your division. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a very hot 50. I'll give you that one though. That was good though. It's a good discussion. No hate against Dave. I know that take was awful, but guys,
I'll welcome it. I'll welcome all the hate.
guys,
I want all the smoke.
Lay it off him. Don't worry, I'll give him the smoke. That's my job, not yours. But we appreciate the hot take. And moving on to my 10. This is only a 10% chance of happening, I believe. But I can be hopeful. I think that Dylan Strome will score 30 plus goals this season. Why? Because he's playing. Why are you laughing? Why are you guys laughing? He's playing.
No reason whatsoever.
He's playing on a much better team. He's playing in a second line center role. And I think he'll strive. He has good wingers. I'm assuming he's going to be playing with Manta. I'm assuming he's going to be playing with Connor Sheary or Connor Brown. But the thing is, I know this looks bad because that preseason power play was not too hot. But hopefully he finds his footing there behind the net or anywhere else on our power play. And I think 30 goals is really doable. He has a wicked shot. And at this point of his career, it's do or die for him, right? And hopefully he does. And I think that's a fair 10 because, it's not a 90, but I think it's reasonable expectations considering this is also a show me year. Okay?
Yeah, I do agree that it's a confident 10%. Like that's what I was looking for too in my 10%. Honestly, Brian knows this. Like I was texting him with every Dylan Strome update because I wanted him on the Leafs.
We got him. We take him.
Yeah, I know. And you got former Leaf Connor Brown. I don't mind it. Like he's got a hell of a shot. I know you brought up like preseason power play, but like my God, that doesn't matter. Do you know like led the preseason in scoring once? Other than like I know like Ty Ratty did it once with the Oilers. Everyone thought Ty Ratty was going to be something, but I'll give you a real throwback. It was probably like early 2010s, maybe even like late 2000s, that like Victor Stahlberg, former Leaf Victor Stahlberg, led the preseason and scored with like 9 points over Ovechkin. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to say is it doesn't matter whatsoever what happens in the
I was
preseason.
using that as a negative because he was on the power play for one of our preseason games, and it might have been like the worst power play I've ever seen. Like I started to like bleed blood when I from my eyes when I cried blood when I watched it because it was like our midseason power play form, and it shouldn't be like that before the season even starts. But regardless, hopefully he does do well. Like I said, it's only a 10. David, what do you think?
Listen, 30 is a lot, but he is a player, who is, I think he's kind of due for that breakout. You use a high draft pick on somebody like him. Maybe like he hasn't shown all of his abilities, and it's difficult to play for a post dynasty Blackhawks team for all those years, especially the past couple of years with the situation going on in Chicago. It just has not been a good situation for anybody involved, and I would expect a lot of bounce back seasons for guys like Dylan Strome, guys like Kirby Dach. Like they're going to have much better seasons than they've had in the past. To put 30 goals at 10%, I think for me personally is a bit high, like just a touch high. I think it's maybe a little bit closer to a 5, but I also wouldn't put it past him either. Like, if that team still, like, you guys still really have a lot of pieces on there that, I'm a bit envious of, man. Like, I wouldn't put it past him to score 30.
And
I'll be honest.
I think that like if Backstrom comes back, hopefully, and when Wilson comes back, I think that will only add to his. I think that will only add to his game in the sense that if Backstrom comes back, he's moved to the wing. If Wilson comes back, he might get some time with Wilson. I mean, injuries suck, but I'm hopeful, and hopefully things work out. Anyway, Cristian, what are you hopeful for your 10?
All right, my 10%, another team-oriented one. I think all three of mine have been team-oriented, but I've hit you guys with this take before. It was only once, so we'll see if you guys remember. But I low-key think that the Preds might be your 2023 President's I was going to say President's Choice. President's Choice, come sponsor the podcast. They're going to be your President Trophy winners this year.
We'll take it.
And Nashville's handing out chicken nuggets at the end of this year.
If
sponsor on their jersey, eh? No.
For anybody listening in America, President's Choice is a really great brand that we have up here for groceries and stuff. Like, can't beat them.
They make real good cookies. That's all I gotta say on that. Okay, to the Presidents. So Nashville. Okay, they got a ton of depth up front. Like I think it's really flown under the radar. Like these guys added Nino Niederreiter. Like people forget that it was very low key, but he's gonna be in their top 6. I know they had maybe not career highs, but they had bounce back seasons from Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene, and we don't necessarily know if you can count on that. But I like some of their younger guys. Phil Tomasino is one of the guys that was in and out of the top 6. He probably gets another chance. Maybe not in the top 6 because of the depth they have, but I think he's a possible breakout candidate. We've been waiting forever for Eli Tolvanen to show his full potential. There's a possibility of that. And then they've got a bit of sandpaper too. Tanner Jeannot was a big fan favorite. One of the low-key dark horses in the Calder race last year. We know he throws the body, brings a little bit of sandpaper. And same can be said about Yakov Trenin. Obviously, like I'm digging real in the depths here. Yakov Trenin, people might not even know, but this guy scored 17 goals last year. He didn't have many points. I think he finished with like 24. But those are the type of guys that you need a little bit of sandpaper, but he also scored some goals. I think he scored a couple big playoff goals in their first round series against Colorado. And in mentioning that, part of the reason I've got some confidence in him is we know UC Saros, when he's on his game, when he's healthy, he's a fringe top 10 NHL goaltender, honestly. He's up in the 918s, possibly 920s when he's playing a full season. So I've got no worries with Saros. And then in terms of backup, they brought in Kevin Lankinen, who has been up and down in his brief time in the NHL. But going back to that Avalanche series, we saw that Connor Ingram can fill in if needed. So they've got a bit of injury insurance. And then the biggest reason I've got some faith in the Preds here is that blue line. Another underrated move, the McDonough trade, where they didn't really have to give up much, but you look at that blue line. We're talking Yossi, who obviously put up what he put up 96 points, incredible. Matthias Ekholm, who's been one of those low key guys that just dependable, gives you 20 minutes, great on the advanced stats, gives you 40 points a year. McDonough, as we mentioned, he's probably going to have a reduced role, which is good for him and good for the Preds. He probably can really maximize in that role. They've also got Alexander Carrier. He's a more underrated guy, a little bit in the mold of Sam Girard, because, the Preds just turn out these guys like it's nothing. And so, yeah, they've got some really, really solid depth on D. And that's my main reasoning that I've got them winning the President's Trophy.
I will say that I do see your points. For a 10, I think it's a little bit high. I think it's more of a 2, 3, 4-ish percentage, just because of the fact that the Avs do exist. Like, I don't know.
And the Lightning.
Yeah, too.
Lightning. I feel like the Coast earlier,
There are a couple of teams that just, I think, outright smash standings much better than the Preds, and just based off that, I can't give it more than a 5% chance, 4% chance. But for a 10, yeah, I guess I could see it. Dave,
I'll give you a small rebuttal. Last year, did we think Florida President's Trophy last year?
I've been on Florida. I've been high on Barkov and stuff and Huberdeau for like years now.
Yeah,
like, legitimately.
Brian's been saying about Barkov since he got drafted. I think honestly, it's been a few years.
I don't know. Like, I think it was due to happen eventually, and I wasn't too surprised about Florida like going into the season.
I'll take it on the chin.
I think personally that's less like Florida. I don't think they even broke out because like they made the playoffs the year before. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's less shocking if they win the President's Trophy than if Nashville kind of comes around and wins the President's Trophy in this current NHL climate. So I'm sorry if I cut you off before, Brian, but like I'm also kind of in the same boat as him, where I'm like, I'm at 5% is my absolute maximum. And that's not to say that I actually do like the pieces that Nashville have. Like, all the points you mentioned above are very strong. Like, for a team that made it to the Cup final, where they lost almost that's almost now 10 years ago, probably, give or take. For a team to they had a couple of years where they had to rebuild. They kind of slowly did that through the draft and through some savvy signings, stuff like that. They had Saros waiting in the wings after Pekka Rinne left. I think that they're definitely on the right path to making moves in the future, though, 100%. And I could see where they're going, and I see your reasoning behind it, Christian. Maybe in a couple of years, like, that pick maybe this year doesn't look that great, but maybe in a couple of years, man, they could be a tough team.
Fair. Dave, hit him with the brutal 10, the one that you have.
All right. Let me just stretch out for this one. Everybody brace onto something right now, because the Arizona Coyotes are making the playoffs this year. Christian, don't spit out that water. Keep it in your mouth.
For me to drink the water as you said that. A little bit in the nose.
Right,
keep that water in your mouth, Christian.
Anybody looking for a job?
Listen, I'll hold my hand up here and say that it is not the greatest take I've ever had, but I'll plant my flag in Arizona right now. Arizona's playing in a very, very difficult situation this year. They quite literally have everything going against them. What could go wrong for them has been going wrong for them. And that just makes their story even better. As mentioned before, they have one goalie on their roster right now, which is I'm going to call him Vejmelka Zezina. You know what I mean? He's playing 82 games this year, guys. He's going to carry the team on his back. Listen, they're going to get a second goalie here. They're going to have to, or else they're not going to be able to play in the NHL this year. Their core doesn't look as strong as some people wanted it to look a couple years ago. Losing somebody like Strome a few years back, it's been a real rough ride for the Coyotes, and now going to play at ASU is not going to be a good look for them. But if anybody's going to be a Cinderella story, it's going to be Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz. You know, the ghost of Andrew Ladd's corpse is still on the books, and you got potentially
Oh my god.
what could be a story of the year here. Nick Ritchie with 14 points in 24 games last year. Listen,
David.
I'll be the first one. I'll be the first one to say he did not look right. He did not look right playing on the Leafs first line. But you know, if he finds his niche and he finds his spots, like he was a top. Christian, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was a top 20 draft pick before. Am I right?
I believe so too. I think so too.
I believe Don Cherry can
listen.
Yes.
Listen, guys. Like, for as much as we want to trash the Coyotes, and they definitely have enough reasons to trash them already. I'm all in on. I like the underdogs. I like the Cinderella stories. I think it makes more compelling watch. Like, it makes a more compelling watch. And why not throw $10 on the Arizona Coyotes to make the playoffs this
I'll
year?
take you for
With
that one.
I'm not going to name any sports books because we're not sponsored by any of them. But if you are a sports book and you're going to listen to this, hit us up, and you could get more.
You know me, transfer.
You could definitely get much more hot takes from me. Again, clip this up when I'm wrong, inevitably at the end of the year. But yeah, like, listen, we mentioned it before, and I said I would save it to the end here. All the reasons that you mentioned about Arizona before are completely right, which is going to make their story even better when they eventually do make the playoffs.
Okay, I will go first.
What do you guys have to say with that?
I'll go first for this one.
Glay into me, Brian.
I'm actually not going to dig it into that bad. I think that we all know that this is a 10% prediction. I think it's a little bit high by about 10%. but if it happens, I'm happy for you, Dave. If it happens, buy a lottery ticket. Christian, I'll pass it off to you.
I mean, listen, Dave, it's brave as hell, and I like the prediction just because it means we get to track this all year and see who the hell is right with my 90% take and your 10%. So I'm looking forward to that. I do agree with you that it's going to be a unique environment, and because of that, we might see something that we didn't expect. The obvious comparison is Vegas, right? The Misfits, that whole identity. They had an incredible home crowd. I remember watching that first Vegas game, and I said, holy crap, like, that's one hell of a crowd. So on the off chance that they can produce that at Mullet Arena, which is 10 out of 10 name, I don't even think like it was intentional. I think it was one of the donors that like helped build the arena or whatever. That's where that comes from, but incredible name. So if they can pounce on this opportunity to make it a unique experience, I could definitely see the players embracing it. But that being said, yeah, I think they're going to be a lot closer to 32 than 16. But I'm looking forward to keeping track of that.
So next year we're going to play 90, 50, 10, and impossible to satisfy Dave. In the meantime, we are going to be taking a quick 5-minute intermission. Hope you guys don't mind. And we're going to get some water, use the washroom, do whatever we have to do. We'll be back in a bit. All right, we are back from our little break. Sorry about that. If you're watching the VOD, well, it's going to be a seamless cut, so don't even worry. So we just finished our 90, 50, 10 predictions. I think David had the worst 10% prediction possible. Christian had a pretty brutal one too with his 10. But you know what? I can't say too much about myself. I can't say too many good things about myself either because mine was kind of tough as well. But what I can say is that if you are watching on YouTube, leave your 90, 50, 10 predictions here. Let us know who has the worst one going into our... Why are you pointing down at me, man? That's just disrespectful.
No, I'm not pointing down at you. I'm pointing to the comment section right now. Leave your comments down below.
Fair. Okay, whatever.
I hope they're down below or to the side, wherever.
That's fine. Anyway, going into our next topic, it's going to be the expectations for the season, and or best storylines for the year. What do you guys have?
I can start off. We already touched on it in terms of the jersey sponsors, just to get basically the whole national media's opinion on it. It'll be interesting to hear I don't know if players really have an opinion. The more I think about it, even media won't really have too much of an opinion. It would probably be like people like us podcasts, but just the general fan feedback, even on something like Twitter or YouTube, I'll be interested to see that, just to see if there is enough of a rile made by fans. Outside of that, another thing we touched on, Dave brought it up, just offense in the NHL. Is it going to stay up? I think last year, honestly, the average goals per game by each team was not by each team, but just if you average it all out, I think it was 3.06 goals per game, which is among the higher marks, definitely in the 2000s. I can actually pull it up here. I've got it right here. So
You guys think
I
it has
guess I don't.
anything to do with the equipment change a couple years ago? You guys think that that's what it is? Like, you think you're starting to see, like, no?
I don't really contribute it more to that. I contribute it more to just the players themselves. Like, just from a Leaf point of view, we've got Matt Murray in net now, and he looks gigantic in the net. Compared to Samsonov and compared to Campbell last year, he's more similar to Freddie, where it feels like he takes up a huge amount of room. So I don't really point to the equipment for that. I point more to the skill of the players, just the change in the game. But yeah, general offense, it's going up. That's a storyline. And then a little bit more team specific. I've been focusing in on the Jets, and it feels like they might implode. They could go one way or the other. Even when they were contending, when they were making the playoffs, they made that run to the conference finals. They that Vegas ended up in the finals against Brian's Caps there. They were always known as a bit of a contentious locker room, and it feels like that's come to light, obviously, with Wheeler being stripped of the C, stories about Line leaving. It doesn't really feel like it's the greatest mix there anymore. Paul Maurice just casually up and leaving. He made it seem like hockey wasn't really his thing anymore, and then he's back in Florida this year. So there's a lot of question marks there. Even Kevin Shoveldayoff, he didn't really do much in the offseason to address the concerns. So I have a bad feeling about the Jets. I think they're going to be on the way down. Luckily, they do got a bit of youth coming. Brad Lambert just drafted this year, Cole Perfetti last year. And then outside of that, I know everyone brings up Patrick Kane in terms of the biggest trade piece, and don't get me wrong, it's 100% the biggest trade piece this year. But one guy I'm keeping an eye on, and it obviously relates to how his team does, is Joe Pavelski, because he, I believe, is also on a one-year deal. And if that guy becomes available, we know what he does in the playoffs. He would be a mercenary on any team, and I could see him doing real damage in the playoffs. And I mentioned this before. I'm a little high on the Devils, have been for a couple of years, but I feel like they could be this year's Vancouver. And what I mean by that is Vancouver started the year off slow. They fire their coach, bring in a new guy, and they end up catching fire. Obviously, Canucks didn't make it last year, and so maybe the Devils won't either, but they're in a similar spot. I could totally see them struggling with a bit of their new pieces, struggling to get that chemistry. Might have to fire Lindy Ruff, but lucky for the Devils. Not lucky because they prepared for it. They hired Andrew Burnett as an assistant coach, so he's waiting in the wings there. I could see him taking over and them getting a little bit hot down the stretch. So I'm seeing a bit of a parallel there with the Canucks last year. So I'd say those are biggest points that I'm looking forward to this season.
Speaking about biggest trade bait pieces, I did do an article on that. Make sure to go onto our site, take a look at it. Shameless plug, my podcast. Don't worry, guys. David, what are your expectations and storylines for this season?
So I think the biggest thing that I'm watching out for this year, stop me if you've heard this conversation before, like we just mentioned it before. The Arizona Coyotes are playing in a stadium that is smaller than most OHL rinks. Definitely not ideal for any professional team, and not even like overseas. You'll see somebody playing in a 3,000. It's 3,000 seats, if I'm not mistaken. Like 3,000 people are or maybe 4,000 are allowed in the stadium due to they had to do some adjustments to the locker room and stuff. Listen, man, it's going to be tough for them. I'm not going to say this year is like make or break for them, but the balance for the team is hanging on by a thread right now. Like, if this experiment does not work in Arizona and the move to Tempe doesn't go through, or something happens, or it does go through and they're still not good, and there's just so many things, like how many more years can fans in Arizona expect, like, how can a market in Arizona thrive if it just keeps getting railroaded by different things? Like, this could either be the start this year of something very, very special that's happening in that state where, it's not typically known to be a hockey state, even though that's where the Leafs, Austin Matthews, was born. But this is the start of a decision that the NHL needs to make in the future of, do they want a team that badly in the desert to fall flat on their face, or like how long is it going to be until you keep running out the same thing without growing, without thriving, without succeeding, right? Like, now it's been 10 years since they made the playoffs, which was their miraculous run to the Western Conference Finals back in 2012, I believe. I think that was the last time that they made it in the playoffs. Like, and it just has not been good for them since then. Listen, I all joking aside here, like, I feel for the fans in Arizona, like the people that are there that want to watch good hockey succeed there. I feel bad for them. Like, they've been left high and dry for too many years now. I think this is either the start of the plug being pulled, or it's the start of a flower digging through the rubble and coming up and, and blossoming into like a tree, basically.
A flower blossoms into a tree. That's interesting.
Or whatever, the saying.
Well, I do like that. I do think that the
Our
NHL.
podcast. Yeah.
I do think that the NHL does need to pay attention to Arizona. That will be an interesting storyline. I will be tuning into at least one Arizona Coyotes game this year at ASU. If that's a mess, I don't even know that's what's gonna happen with that. Just imagine you're going to, like, you're finishing like school or like university, and then you're like, I'm gonna watch an NHL caliber game, and then you just go to your local university stadium. Like, that's gotta be so interesting. Like, we all went to like school in the GTA, and I can't imagine like watching the Leafs play against the Blackhawks or something like that at our local ice rink on our university campus. That's just ridiculous to me. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, they hit all the points there. I mentioned it's going to be a unique environment, and as far as it goes, with Arizona, their future, their past, the health of the market, they do have some good signs. I'm pretty sure. I feel like I see this stat every year where it's like youth hockey participation in Arizona is like 205% up from the year before. They're like one of the fastest growing hockey markets at the grassroots level. So there's hope there when it comes to potential players making the NHL. I think Cutter Gauthier this year, he was drafted high, I think top 5. He's from Arizona as well. So on that front, they're looking okay. And then in terms of the actual state of the team, the organization, their future outlook, I don't hate it because they've been stockpiling draft picks like no tomorrow. And yeah, the cupboards are bare in terms of an NHL roster right now. But I mean, they timed it pretty well with the Bedard draft coming up here. And obviously, there's more than just Bedard. We've got Michkov in the event that they find a way to get him out of not get him out of Russia, but in the event that he decides he's looking to come overseas. And there's guys behind him too. I think the other guy that people are excited about is Adam Fantilly out of the OHL. So there's some really big prospects. Most scouts, you'll hear them say that this is going to be a big year. So they've timed themselves up well when it comes to that. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like we're all going to be paying attention to Coyotes games, whether it's to see Dave's bet suck, my bet suck, someone's bet's going to suck. That's the moral of the story here.
Yeah, man, that's actually a very good storyline for the season. But I don't think we realize how awkward it's gonna look on TV. Even just tuning into it, it's just gonna be weird.
Everything about it's going to be like just completely like, it's going to look backwards 100%. Like, it's not going to look professional. It's barely even going to look semi-professional, if I'm being honest. Like, I said it before, there's a OHL rink in Mississauga right now with double the capacity of what the Arizona Coyotes are going to be playing in. Like,
That's
listen,
like 3 levels
it's
down.
going to be tough.
And that's
Yeah,
like three
it
like
is.
levels of like playing down, which is kind of ridiculous to me. I can't even imagine it. Like, and it's not even a hockey, centric area. If this is like at U of T, Ryerson, York University, like at one of those schools, and the Leafs are playing there, I bet you it sells out in 5 minutes less, right? But
Oh yeah.
this is Arizona. Like, can they even fill 6K or whatever, 5K or whatever the stadium fits? Like,
Part of the
it's
complication there is because it's in the US. I mean, they're not legal to drink, right? So
that
it's
too.
not like you can go into the game and legally buy alcohol. So it's a very weird combination in terms of location, the product quality. And yeah, even from like a broadcasting standpoint, it's going to be really interesting to see how that looks on TV. Like, obviously, every NHL team's going to have to roll through this arena. So I feel like we're going to have like one team that's got some weird complication. I can't remember if it was the Panthers or the Coyotes last year. Someone pointed out there was like a weird blue tinge to their feed or whatever. Like, I could totally see
the Panthers.
Yeah, Panthers. Okay. But like, can you totally not see some weird thing happening with every Coyotes broadcast where because of the arena setup or something, we don't see the puck in this corner because it's too low? Like, just weird things that we never expected to see in the NHL.
That's
Brian, did you hit
that's
Cristian, Cristian, I have one question for you. Are they not allowing the sale of alcohol at the stadium? Do you know? Because it's on state ground.
That's a great question. I actually don't know the answer. I feel like I'd be really surprised if there's no alcohol being sold. But you bring up a good point that because it's on campus grounds, it might be prohibited. That's a great question. We'll probably find out sooner than later. It's probably already been announced, but I never even thought about that. It might not be available for anybody. Forget about students.
But this is like a tier one, like the highest premier level of like the sport. The fact that like there's going to be no alcohol is going to be, let's say there's no alcohol, right? It's going to be weird. Concessions are not going to be as strong as like, I don't know, at the Bell Center, for example, right? That's a given. And I don't know. I just don't know how it's going to end up. I hope it does well. Obviously, the system works in the sense that you do get high-end quality talent from the desert. It's been proven. You can at least once. It's not impossible, right? It might be an anomaly, but it's not impossible. It's just going to be weird.
Well, I mean, it could be possible twice. Like Cristian mentioned before, like that Cutter Gauthier looks like I wouldn't say like real deal. Like I haven't personally seen him, but like for all intents and purposes, like if he grew up in Arizona, like he's a hometown guy, probably gives him a little bit more pep in his step than maybe other people will. Like I guess you could say the same thing about the Ontario effect playing for the Leafs, even the Sens playing close to home. But like it probably does help somebody like Cutter Gauthier, and you know what? Maybe he succeeds more that he was drafted to Arizona than he would say be drafted to Seattle, who I believe had the pick right after, if I'm not mistaken, because then I believe they were the ones that they passed up on Cutter. Sorry, the Arizona passed up on Shane Wright.
Yeah.
And then they draft Cutter Gauthier just before Shane Wright was drafted, or am I?
Of alphabet soup. So these are the three names we're getting confused. There's Logan Cooley, Connor Geeky, and
Cooley.
Yeah,
That's
you
what it was.
You know what Gauthier ended up with? He ended up with the Flyers, which is not much better than the Coyotes. But on the standpoint of Cooley, like there's a guy who he's American, right? He was on the US NDTP, the national team there, the program that Brian loves so much. And yeah, I mean, there's a guy who, at the very least, he's American. People know about him in the US. He can probably do this to the same effect they're talking about Cutter Gauthier. There's something there. Yeah.
This is definitely another topic, like a deeper topic we can definitely delve into if it's worth it or not to keep the team there. But
you delved a ton into Arizona, man. Like, holy.
But Dave,
you would think we're Arizona fans over here, man.
but Dave, I do agree with you. This is probably like a sleeper topic that like isn't being talked enough about. We should definitely look into this next episode or in a future episode.
Well, I mean, listen, the media in Toronto won't really acknowledge that until the Leafs roll into town, or maybe like to an extent like the Habs roll into town. So we're really not going to see anything for it unless you kind of go out of your way. I just,
like a big deal. Like,
yeah, I mean, listen, it should be like the team's like it's life or death right now for the Coyotes. Like for lack of a better term, like Christian, do they have their stadium set? Do you know if they even have plans? Like, I know they have plans in place, but I don't even know if it went through.
I don't know if it's like concrete set in stone, if there's an agreement. It might actually be like contingent on things that happen this year. But I'm almost positive there's not been like a groundbreaking ceremony or anything like that. So they are still in limbo. And I mean, it's because I believe the reason they're in this scenario is, well, yeah, they couldn't come to a renewing deal on their lease. But they also missed payments, right? That was part of it as well. So it's tough scenario that they've been put in. Not that they've been put in; they've put themselves in this scenario by not being financially stable. Um, but man, I really hope they can get out of it by becoming financially stable. As much as they're viewed as the go-to relocation team, um, there's probably room to expand if we really got to. I honestly, even though I've got them finishing like possibly last this year, I'm optimistic about the future in Arizona.
I am too. This is not something that I think that will happen or what I personally think is the best business decision. But maybe you should just sign an Arizona superstar one day in a couple of years. And why are you rolling your eyes at me? And
Yeah, Cutter Goche. Is that who
yeah,
you're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about?
yeah. That's
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
that's the one
you were
that's. But no,
Mm.
we should definitely talk about this in another episode, or get an article out. What I can tell you right now
One,
is that, huh?
sorry.
Pardon me? Go
One
ahead.
last question I had just about this situation is, do you guys see relocation in the future for Arizona? I mean, it's lasted this long. The NHL's been stubborn. Do you see them eventually moving if this doesn't work out?
Christian, you go first.
The NHL has been stubborn because Gary Bettman has been stubborn, and I don't think Bettman's going to be the one to let Arizona relocate. So I think if Arizona's relocating, it's not under his watch. And like I said, I'm optimistic that they're on the right path. This is like they've never had the star power. We mentioned it; they never had it, but this is as close as they're going to get to it by going to rock bottom. They weren't anything special last year. They are at rock bottom, we believe, this year, just on a talent level. We understand that their environment may make them play better than we expect, but you got to hit rock bottom to eventually get to the top. So I think we have to let this regime play out its process one last time. As long as they can float above water financially, we'll see. Um, but I'm gonna say they don't relocate. I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say they end up working it out.
So my take on
Brian?
this is that the business has to make sense, right? It's gonna cost money to move the team. It's gonna cost money to keep the team. What makes the most sense? I mean, if the whole goal of this was to promote the desert hockey, then it's working slowly, very slowly, but it's working. And maybe we do need to see it run its course. But if the financials don't make sense anymore, I wouldn't be surprised if they shipped it off somewhere else. I don't think Canada would also be the destination because of the dollar compared to the USD. It's not doing too hot right now. I don't want to get too into economics right now, but if that doesn't make sense, then the move doesn't make sense. Maybe we see it on another American team. I don't have one in my mind right now, considering Seattle just got their team, but
Houston.
it's probably going to be Houston. I
Yeah.
don't want to.
A good choice.
I don't want to like. I mean, for tax reasons too, right? But I don't want to set that in stone because I do think that eventually it's going to work. Eventually, it has to work, right? I mean, it's like if you keep buying enough lottery tickets, you're going to win something eventually, right? It just we have to see it run its course, and well, in a few years. But until then, they're stuck playing at ASU. And going into my storyline for this season, as you guys couldn't have, if you guys could probably already tell, I am a Capitals fan, and the one
No.
storyline that I continually pay attention to, or will only really be paying attention to for the next few years, as our window is likely already closed for the cup, is Ovechkin chasing the goal record. Based on
Yeah,
my 90%
yeah.
prediction, based on what you guys said, I can happily assume that you guys think that he will likely score 35 plus goals and likely eventually, hopefully, get the goal record. But I don't know. I feel like that's going to be another interesting storyline, especially for me, as I do watch the Capitals. That's the only team that I really pay attention to on a daily basis. So yeah, what's your take on that, guys?
I think it's a pretty solid take. You mentioned it. I can definitely say that. I think he's going to break the record. I think what is it? He has to average, I think, 35 goals for what, another 3-4 years.
I think 4 or 5.
That,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, that's pretty doable for Ovi. I'm not too worried about that. And honestly, I mentioned it. The Pujols chase for 700. I honestly wonder if Ovi paid even just a little bit of attention to that to see what that chase is like, because um, I'm a Jays fan. You can see by the hats. I've been like refreshing my feed every time the Cards play just to see the Pujols hit another one. I mean, now he's even tied with Babe Ruth for RBIs, second all time. So, like I said, I'm a casual. Oh, I watch the Jays, but on a national level, I'm a casual MLB fan. But I've been locked in on the Pujols storyline, and it would be great for hockey at the national level to see Ovi make that chase. The attention that it would bring to the NHL would be incredible, because maybe not every superstar in the NHL currently is a household name, but Gretzky, that's a household name. And if you're saying you're chasing Gretzky, people are paying attention.
Dave?
Well, listen, I don't know if I said this before, but I do have the belief in Ovi. Listen, nothing so far. I know he's getting older, and age will suddenly catch up on him. There's no doubt about it, and it's going to catch up on everybody, no whether you like it or not. But nothing right now has shown me that he can't average at least 35 a year for the next few years to break that record. But I also think that should he not break the goal record, which I don't believe will happen, but there is a realm of possibility where something could always go wrong, and he might not officially eclipse it. I still think I don't know if everybody's going to feel the same way. I could maybe say the guys on this podcast might feel the same way, but he's going down as the greatest goal scorer in NHL history. Sorry, Wayne Gretzky. For as much as the 80s were a fun time for if you were around, I guess. Wayne Gretzky is technically a better goal scorer than Gretzky ever was, and that's not even gonna want to slight people from the past, like two different eras. You could do that with any sport, but in my mind, Alexander Ovechkin is the greatest goal scorer of all time, whether he has the goal record or not. It also says a lot about what was once seen as an untouchable record by many people's standards in an era that he played in, especially the early 2000s into the 2010s, where scoring wasn't as high as it was right now. Like, imagine you throw prime Ovi in this type of era where Matthews is scoring 60 a year. Who knows what else? Like, who knows how much better or how many more goals he could have scored. So I think he might have done it in technically a tougher era than other people might give him credit for. But yeah, no, I think in my mind Ovechkin is already the scoring champion, whether he has the title or not. And I think right now it's just a matter of time until what's the official count? 763, 783.
I have no idea off the top of my head.
Whatever. 750 plus.
Yeah.
750 plus goals. Whenever he officially hits that record, it'll just be like the crown like being put on his head. I think right now it's just being polished, honestly.
I know it's a buy Brian for Christmas now. I'm gonna buy him like a goal counter. He's gonna have it in his bedroom every morning. He's gonna wake up. He's gonna have to update it after every OV goal. He's gonna count down. If you don't know what Gretzky's, I don't either. So, but you gotta know.
Wait, I know
You're
Gretzky's
the
at,
one
I know
invested in
Gretzky's
this.
at 894. I know that for a fact. I don't know what his
894. Oh
I
my
don't know. I
god.
don't know what Ovechkin's at
Okay.
though, off the top of my head.
I should.
You know what? 763 is the home run record. That's why I got that number. That makes it a lot more wow, that just puts it into perspective, man.
I remember when he scored 500 in 2015 against Ottawa. I was watching that game live, like on my TV. I was like, "Oh my goodness, 500! He's so far away." And then look, like he's like 7 years later. Like how far it's come, right? It's like crazy to think about it. But regardless, I'm glad that we all have really good opinions about the storylines for the year. So the last thing we have to talk about is we have one hot take each. Christian, do you want to start?
Specifically, it's gonna be my hottest take. Like it's gotta be burning red hot. I've hit this one on Brian. I think I threw it to Dave too. We'll see if they remember, but I'm gonna go on a limb and say that Tage Thompson is the real deal. The guy scores 40 goals this year. I think he scored 38 last year. I'm gonna say that he eclipses that and he keeps his half a goal per game pace this season. Um, Where's my belief come from? Honestly, it's a pretty stupid story. 2018 preseason. This is Tavares' first game at Scotiabank Arena. This is just right after the name change. I was at that game, and Tavares scores, I think, 2 goals in that game. He definitely scored the first goal of the game. And I remember saying to myself, like, who are the standouts from this game? So obviously, one was Tavares. Other Leaf was Semyon Duragachintsev. All my Leaf homies, you better know him. SDA, right?
SDA, baby.
Yeah, so he actually played so well that game that he signed a contract that night. I remember walking out at Scotiabank and seeing the tweet. They brought him up in the suite and they had him sign the deal right after that game. That's how well he played. But my third guy on that standout list was Tage Thompson. He was prominent. I noticed him every time. And I wasn't looking for Sabres players. I'm obviously looking at the Leafs. But man, obviously he's a gigantic dude. I think he's like, what, 6'6". But he skates like the wind. And he's got a hell of a shot. And between him and Alex Tuck, they got a bunch of towers in Buffalo, man. So that's going to be my hottest take. Tage Thompson, the real deal.
I will go first. I'm a big fan of Tage Thompson. Obviously, U.S. product, great player. I hope he does do well. I think 40 goals is a lot. I can see 30. I can see 25. 40's pushing it. But I hope it happens. I hope that Buffalo finally gets, a more stable piece there that does well. And if it happens, it happens. I think it's a very hot take. I think your take is way harder than mine. We'll leave it at that. But no, I hope it happens. Dave, what about you?
I mean, man, you know me. I love the chaos. And listen, I was by the end of last year, I was riding the Buffalo Sabres train. And you know what? I think I'm going to ride it again as much as not even that it pains me as a Leaf fan, because Buffalo always plays the Leafs so tough. They always give the Leafs, whether or not they're 32nd in the league or when they were first in the league for a while, like, when we were younger, Buffalo always gives the Leafs a hard time, and I'll always have them in my nightmares. But I'm very excited to see Tage Thompson again this year. 40 is a lot, again, but I think if anybody on that team is going to do it, I think it's that big body that they've got.
40
That
is a lot,
6'6"
guys.
frame.
40 is a lot of goals,
It was a
man.
lot, but so was 38 last year. I think it was 38 that he had. So 2 more? Totally. I see it. I know he signed the big deal. I think it was something to the effect of 8x8, something in the eights, little eights. But I think he rises to the challenge, honestly.
Like, how many players can say they've hit 40 goals, like, ever in the career?
It's probably like, it's in the couple hundreds at least.
It is. But like, I mean, put it in perspective of like.
You don't think Tage Thompson is that guy?
I hope he can. I think he's a great player, but 40, man, like, wasn't it a few years ago, like, everybody's making a deal that Tavares scored 40?
He scored 48 and
something like that.
He was
yeah. But like that was a big deal. Like, that's a superstar, at the time. I'm not saying that Tage Thompson is like not a superstar, but like his whole career, he's barely been middle six, right? And then now he popped off 1 year. Like, I don't know if it's an anomaly, but I don't know. I hope it happens. I will go first with my not as hot take, because I know David probably has a much better take than mine. But my take is that the 3 Pacific teams that make the playoffs this season will be Canadian. Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, in that order. It's not that hot, but considering that the Central is much stronger than the Pacific, I see that the Central will take both wildcard spots, and I don't think that any of the teams in the Pacific compare to the 3 Canadian teams, in the sense that I think that the 3 Canadian teams this year all have done their part to be better in their own way. Therefore, they'll take the 3 spots in the division. What do you guys think?
Okay, Brian, the one thing I will say to that is I think you might be right on Calgary and Edmonton. I know you have a real big love for the Vancouver Canucks, in particular Elias Pettersson. I remember last year you said that he was going to be better than Matthews. Maybe that take
I thought he was
we
bound for
could
95
bring
points, bro. Like I thought he was gonna have a killer season, like last season. It didn't happen.
Listen, Brian, I personally don't think the Canucks are quite what you think they might be. You know, they do have good pieces, but I still, if they make it into that third spot, it's going to be fighting tooth and nail with a team like Vegas, who are looking to rebound after a pretty shocking and disappointing season that they've had. Listen, I wouldn't put it past them to, I wouldn't put it past Vancouver. Like they look like they have the real deal in Thatcher Demko, and as everyone in here knows, you are only as good as your goalie is. And Thatcher Demko looks like he can be that guy. I still do think that they have a lot of questions up front and on defense. You know, I don't know if Quinn Hughes is that is he's a fantastic offensive guy. Is he gonna be your workhorse defenseman as well? Like, is he gonna be that stalemate in the back? Maybe he grows this year, maybe he doesn't. And is Elias Pettersson going to take steps? Is Brock Besser going to take steps forward? I don't know. I don't see it. I always see the hype around Vancouver, and I like to kind of push it off to the side until I see it for myself. I gladly like to eat my words. I don't hate any team in the league, maybe except for like Boston, because like who likes Boston anyways? But I would like to see every team succeed. Until I see it, though, I don't see Vancouver finishing in that third spot right now.
Okay, but you do agree that 1 and 2 Calgary, Edmonton, right? Whatever in order.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, yeah, okay. For sure.
Cristian? Mm-hmm.
I agree on that front as well. I probably have Calgary 1, Edmonton 2, but I don't mind the expectation of Vancouver in the third spot. We mentioned Vegas as one of the teams they'd be competing with. The other team would be LA, who made the playoffs this year. But I honestly, out of those 3, I might take Vancouver as well. Just point out the weaknesses with Vegas to me. Obviously, Lehner's out for the year, or I think he's out for the year. So you're relying on Logan Thompson, who did he did show pretty well at the end of the season last year when he was called upon, but that's a tough bet to ride on for 82 games. And their forward depth is sneakily not too good anymore. I was looking a couple weeks ago, and this is before they had Phil Kessel, so you throw in Phil Kessel, who probably plays some top 6 minutes, but I saw like Michael Amadio was their number 3 center. Are you kidding me? I think now it's probably Nicolas Roy, but just looking at that bottom 6, I wasn't too impressed with it. And then on the LA front, they are still pretty young. You are relying on Jonathan Quick to have a good season. Mind you, they do have Cal Peterson, but I don't know if they're ready to be in that third spot. I think they were probably a wild card team last year, if I'm not mistaken. But I think Vancouver could give them a run for their money. We mentioned Thatcher Demko, and for me, it's the forward depth that I'm really strong on. We talked about, or I brought up Ottawa and their top 6. I mean, listen to Vancouver's top 6. We obviously know the foursome of Besser, Pettersson, Miller, Horvat, and then you've got Connor Garland as your number 5 scorer. I can deal with that. And then number 6 is really up for grabs if you want to be going with Nils Hoglander, Vasily Podkolzin, who's obviously got a lot of pedigree, Andrei Kuzmenko, who they just brought in from the KHL, who I think had way better numbers than Mikheyev did coming from the KHL, scoring-wise at least. Those are 3 names right there that could definitely fill in that. We're talking about the 6th spot in the top 6. That's if you want to stack that top of the lineup. But that's an incredible top six that you can have. And I didn't mention Tanner Pearson. And then there is bottom of the lineup guys, Jason Dickinson. I know they lost Tyler Mott, but at that point, you're talking about a formidable top nine. And if your worry is a fourth line, you're doing pretty well. On defense, that is where the depth isn't as great. You're going to be relying on guys like Travis Dermott, Luke Shen in an elevated role, Tyler Myers and OEL as your workhorse defenseman, because I do agree with Dave. It can't really be Quinn Hughes. He's much more of a rover. I don't know if you're throwing him out on the penalty kill every night. He could probably step in the role if needed, but that's not an ideal position to put him in. But still, out of those three teams that I think would be fighting for that third Pacific spot, I'm not opposed to taking Vancouver. I'll say they are my favorite out of Vancouver, Vegas, and LA to take that third spot.
So I'm not crazy. Anyways, those are our hot takes, and I guess we're out of topics for the day.
Dave, the hottest hot take yet?
Oh,
Dude, I think I put 3 hot takes out already. So I think off the I could come up with something. I could come up with something off the top of my head. I don't. If you want me to, I mean, all my other ones were kind of like that.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We'll cut it there because
the rumble that'll come for next episode.
Yeah. You gotta leave something.
For sure.
You gotta leave the carrot out there. Anyway, yeah, let us know your 90, 50, 10 predictions for the upcoming season. Let us know who's the dumbest. Let us know who's the smartest, and make sure to clip it so we at the end of the season we see, why David's gonna be wrong or why I'm wrong or why Christian's wrong. Anyway, make sure you guys subscribe to Fubo TV, shop at Razer, shop at NHL Shop. All of the links will be down in the description. Also, make sure to check out our articles. Make sure to get our phone app that has been created already. It's on our website. Everything is there. Just click the phone app section and scan the link, and it's pretty foolproof. The instructions are all there for you guys. Thank you guys for listening. Before I close it off, do you guys have anything left to say, Christian?
Honestly, I think you hit on all the points there. Check out the website. Check out our TikTok account. Dave over here, this guy's in charge of that. We should give him a look.
About that. Also, yeah, that's right. Make sure to look at our socials, subscribe, like, follow, do all that fun stuff. Dave, you have anything else to say?
Nope, Christian took the words out of my mouth. I just want to boost up the TikToks because I like to see those impression counts going up.
Also, if you have any feedback for us, let us know. This was definitely our first time. The next episode will likely be a live stream, but who knows? Depending on how things go, this might be the way to do it. Well, we're going to play it by ear, but anyway, thank you again for listening if you stayed here for the whole 2 hours. Take care and all the best. Bye.